Well, good afternoon, everybody. This is Nick Critelli from Des Moines, Joe Peiffer from Cedar Rapids, Brooke Trent from Cedar Falls, Christy over at the bar office, and Trey, the director of the Office of Professional Responsibility. Thank you all for joining today. A lot of you are still logging in so far. The numbers keep going up. I wish the stock market was going up that way. We're up to what, about 821 or 22 at this point. We cap out at 1,000 people attending. We had 1,170 register. So what we're going to do is to record this webinar, and the link to the recording will be sent out to those people that registered but that were not able to attend. Then what we hope to do is to submit the recording to your office, Trey, for CLE credit. Now, is that called a webinar on demand? Is that how you use that?
Yeah, so there's two types. The live one right now is a live webinar, and Christy will submit this to the office, and we'll get an activity ID number for this one. But then she'll also submit it, and she'll ask for an ID number for the on-demand portion. So it will be up for about a year that you can use this. So if you want to watch this, or those people can watch it anytime, but those viewers that are watching this now can always watch that one again because it has a different activity ID number. You know, if you watch this through once and say, I really want to see all the good hints that Brooke has and Joe's talking about, feel free to watch it again, and you can put both those activity ID numbers on your transcript. You can't put the same number on twice. It is kind of like a twofer, so just make sure, and Christy will probably get that those numbers out to everybody, would be my guess. She always does that in the past. And
yep.
Yeah, we've got the number for this one. You'll see it at the end of the webinar, and the reason, Trey, you're kind of like the lawyer cop on this stuff, the reason we show it at the end of the webinar is to make sure they actually see it all the way and stay. Okay?
Exactly. It's
so
kind of like the
we'll get that out to you. It's the dessert. That's exactly right. Folks, really appreciate you logging on. This is obviously a timely webinar, as we're all operating remotely, as you can see. The basement, Joe's, and Joe, you're at your basement, right? Joe, wake up. There we go.
Yes, sir.
Joe's in his basement, and Brooke's in her office, so everyone's everywhere. And this will give you an idea as to how
dining room. I'm in my dining room.
Some of the issues we run into. So, okay, so here's some comments. This is going to be an interactive webinar. By interactive, I mean that at a point here in the webinar, we're going to be opening the microphones to you to ask for the questions that you have. Now, that takes a little bit of coordination. We have two aspects here, things that you can do. One is you can post a chat. Okay, the other is you can use the question format of GoToWebinar. Please use the question, because we have Suzanne Tomlinson out in Las Vegas, who is our producer, who is going through all of these things, noting who has questions, and at an appropriate time, we'll turn this over to Suzanne, and she will open up the question so that we can get a question and answer dialogue going with respect to you. You can chat, sometimes you can use, but it's just a little easier and quicker if we use the question format. And by the way, here's how that looks. You'll see there's a panel on your GoToMeeting thing. You can make, by clicking on that arrow at the top, you can make the panel larger, or you can make it smaller. And there's the chat button, and there's the question button. So just use the question button. It makes it a little easier to handle. Now, one of the issues that we come in with is that there's a lot of technology involved here. And it takes time to learn the technology, and actually it takes time for us to me in particular, to build this stuff. And I want to thank some people that have been very instrumental in helping me get my head around this, how to work it, and so forth. So this is kind of, I won't call him a sponsor, but I certainly will call him an influencer with respect to how we work on this. And that's an Iowa lawyer by the name of David Hirsch. David and Dave Beckman, you will recall, about 15 years ago, authored a monthly column in the ABA Journal on Technology. These two Iowa lawyers, folks, were way ahead of the curve. They were embedded in technology way before anyone ever thought about it, and did more than anyone else, frankly, in the country to get the Iowa bar up to speed regarding technology. So I wanted, and David has helped me tremendously. I wanted to shout out to David. David also is an author, and I would urge all of you, now that we're home with nothing to do, pick up his book off of Amazon, The Tyranny of Public Discourse. What David and his colleague have done is, Dan Van Heften, is they've analyzed Abraham Lincoln's advocacy and have divided it into 6 elements and have researched it. And this book ought to be taught in law school. If you're talking about written advocacy, oral advocacy, this is the guidebook. Take a look at it. I've been using the 6 elements in my pleadings and in my court processes now for a couple of years. And like I say, of all the books I've ever seen on advocacy, this is by far the best one, because he also deals with the written form. 6 elements of style with respect to advocacy. David, we thank you very much, and I thank you for all of your input with respect to technology. Here's our agenda. We've talked about how to interact with us. We're going to be covering ethical issues involved in operating remotely, technical issues, and then, of course, some products that we're all using, because we all have our favorite form of connectivity. I'm a GoToMeeting, GoToWebinar fan. I know Trey and Joe are Zoom people. I'm going to introduce you to our presenters. Then we'll have your questions, and then we'll obviously conclude. So, a couple of ethics issues that we need to deal with here, because they're important. First of all, lawyers have an ethical obligation to act with reasonable diligence and promptness in representing a client. Well, that's difficult to do if you can't get to your office. The normal meetings, the exchange of information and so forth in the normal course of business doesn't work when we're in a period of cessation. But we do have an ethical obligation to utilize technology to be able to continue to build and deliver the legal services. Professional Rules 32.1 requires all of us to be competent. And it requires us to have the requisite legal knowledge, skill, thoroughness, and preparation to be able to build and deliver the legal service. Thus, we have this webinar today. And then last but not least, by any means, is the obligation of confidentiality. How do you do that? How do you utilize technology? Webinars like we're doing now. I'll have a webinar this afternoon with a number of clients on the matter. How do I ensure confidentiality under 32.1.6? Brooke has got an excellent presentation on that she's going to share with you, and some documents I won't preempt her. I'll just let her deal with that. So those are some of the ethical issues that we're going to be talking about today. As a result of that, this webinar has been credited for 1 hour of ethics CLE. So let me turn my phone off here. Sorry about that. So technical issues. So what are we talking about? Well, first of all, with respect to connectivity, the first issue is, do you have enough bandwidth to be able to utilize all the technology that we're talking about? What is your bandwidth that you have? Are you better off doing this from home or at the office? Do you have enough throughput? What about you using your cell phone and speed associated with that? Brooke and I were talking earlier while we were waiting for this to come on. And Brooke, you've experienced some connectivity issues up there, have you not?
I have, and my husband also works.
Sorry about that. Hold on here. No?
Nope. Can you hear me now? Okay. My husband also works from home. And
Yeah, go ahead,
we were
Brooke.
both working from home. We were having a lot of connectivity issues, and we're able to call. And we were able to call Cedar Falls Utilities. $24 a month, 4 times faster internet. Totally worth it right now when we're both doing video chats and things like that.
Okay.
Is my quality okay? Can you hear me?
One of the difficulties that you run into with respect to working remotely is when you stream audio. Yeah, when you stream audio and video, because that really sucks down the bandwidth. Now we've got a number of people on the video feed here now. We happen to have a pretty fast internet connectivity here, throughput here, but that's an important issue that you have to deal with. Those of you that are lucky to live in areas where you have 5G connectivity on your cell phones, you won't have that problem. You can use that as a hotspot. The next issue that you have to deal with is internet security. And we're going to be talking about VPNing into your office, the use of cloud storage, and how secure is that? Everyone has their own favorite little form of cloud storage that they use. And then, of course, you've got computers, microphones, speakers, cameras, things along that nature. Just how fancy do you get with this stuff? For example, if you are home and you're concerned about how you're going to project this to your clients, how do you do that? Example, what you see behind me now is not really the basement. What you're looking at is a green screen. So, that's what the office looks like. So, I get this out of the way here. There we go. So, things, background and so forth is important with regard to when you're doing a presentation and how it works, etc. These are all little things that you've got to take into consideration when you're meeting a client and how things work. Now, you obviously don't have to get fancy like that, but the fact is that you must be very cautious about what you're showing to your clients, because they may be home, but they expect to have all kinds of confidence in their lawyer and how that works. Some of the products that we're going to be talking about today, both our panelists, are first of all, a meeting software. We're using GoToMeeting and GoToWebinar. Trey and Joe use Zoom. There's also Skype. There are client portals, Clio and Basecamp. We're a Basecamp firm here. Trey got us onto that 20 years ago. Joe's been a Clio user for years. Communications. How do you communicate with your client? Trey over at the Office of Professional Responsibility is using Slack. And I know that Joe uses Teams. Logistics. How do you schedule meetings if everyone is disconnected? And you know how difficult that could be to get a meeting scheduled or a deposition set up or a mediation set up. We do a lot of telemediations, and just getting the people at the right time at the right place is difficult. Oh, well, there's Doodle for that. Document signing, if we're all in different places. There's DocuUsign, and you're going to be hearing some information with regard to notarization. How do you notarize this stuff if people can't get together? And Joel is going to have some comments for you on that, the same way with Christy. And last but not least, storage. We use ShareFile. There's Dropbox and there's Box. I think this kind of stuff is important that you need to know about. Most of these are secure, but things that just pay attention to. All right, our all-star cast of presenters. Without Christy and Suzanne, this doesn't work. Christy is the ISBA Bar Association CLE director. She's the one that mans the board, helps produce. Suzanne Tomlinson happens to be in Las Vegas right now. Suzanne does all of our multimedia presentations here at CritelliLaw. She's also the producer, is the one that's monitoring the people that log on, that have questions and so forth. When you do a webinar of this nature, and actually when you get any more than about 15 people on, you need a second person to help you produce it, because you can't be a presenter and also a producer and monitor all the stuff. You have too many different things going on at once. So these people are absolutely indispensable. So then, of course, we got Joe. Joe is over in Cedar Rapids and runs a small specialty firm over there. You'll hear from him. And you got Brooke over in Cedar Falls, who made the mistake. Brooke, we'll call it that. You made the mistake of sending an email saying, hey, here's something you may want to look at. I sent back to her saying, I got good news and bad news for you. Okay, the good news is thank you so much. I appreciate what you sent me on confidentiality. The bad news is congratulations, you're a presenter. Which I think she's got, what did I ever get into? Never respond to my emails, Brooke. Then, of course, you have the boss. This is the director of the Office of Professional Regulation, Trey Critelli. Trey, as you also know, is also an English barrister at the Middle Temple, and this is what I've been waiting for. Trey, you're a good son, and without you, none of this would have ever come about because you kind of drug me into the 21st century here with GoToMeeting, GoToWebinar, and all the stuff that we do. To the extent that we are ahead of the curve on technology and the building of legal services, it's really as a result of you, and I wanted to give you a shout out to that. Thank you very much, Trey. Okay, now, I can't resist this. This is what happens when you have your dad running things. The other day I found this.
I'm sure the 1,000 viewers love seeing this. This is why they're here.
Actually, I think he was cuter back then. Yeah, this is called My Revenge. Okay, this is my revenge for not visiting your old man, you know, in his elderly area. Yeah. So that's what we got. So Trey, I'm going to turn it over to you to give us a brief on what's going on in your shop from the director. Your operations update, ethical issues that you see, remote protocol that you're using, products and so forth, and particularly the Slack. That was fascinating the way you're doing that. Take it away, Trey.
Okay. Well, hopefully you have a good audio connection here. Give me a thumbs up if you can hear this all right, because it is cutting in and out. One of the things we talked about was the difficulty with connections and, of course, taxing out things such as the internet. And even here at the Judicial Branch Network, we're seeing a pull on the bandwidth because a lot of people are logging in remotely and causing drops and things. We use a couple of different items. Our whole office is working remotely now. So we come in, we have a tiered system. When people come in, they get the mail, bar applications, those sort of things. But we're pretty much all working from our respective houses. We found out what's very helpful is to have backups. So things for like our online meetings, we have GoToMeeting, but we also have Zoom. We've been using that for some of the meetings, and that's a free one as well that you can try for up to 40 minutes. So by all means, give that one a shot. Zoom as well as GoToMeeting, they basically work the same. All the operations, everything has basically been rolled over to online here, so we still have CLE being approved. All of you should have got my email on. We lifted the cap on unmoderated CLE, so you can take as many as you want. Hopefully, you got my email about making phone calls, so make your 16 phone calls if you haven't. We'd appreciate that. But everything's pretty much ongoing, and we're converting the few remaining things over to all online. Things like dealing with certified mail was one of the things I was dealing with this morning. How do we handle the mail coming into the office? Things like court reporters dealing with certifications if they're doing a remote deposition. How do we change some of those things? So from an operations perspective, we're tackling problems as they come up and really coming up with creative solutions. So by all means, drop me an email if there's something you've run across that we can provide some guidance to. As for products, the one I really wanted to share with you is one that my assistant director, Jessica Taylor, brought to our attention, which was Slack, S-L-A-C-K. And that's basically a communications protocol to allow people to communicate inter-office. So when my employees are around the Des Moines area we can all be logged into Slack and we can have those chats back and forth that we normally would have in the hallway. And that's really done a lot to bring the group together as a cohesive entity. We can have joint calendars, we have communications going back and forth. We even have some non-work related channels such as pets. Everybody has a pet, so we took the opportunity to have people post pictures of their pets and things to bring us together in this time of need. So Slack is something that I highly recommend you take a look at. It's free, so it doesn't cost a lot of money, and just get in and play around. Watch a couple of videos on YouTube on how to work it if you have any questions, but I think you'll get up and running. We've not extended it outside of our office in the sense of allowing non-members to be able to use it, but we focused those solely within the inner office communication other than email. So we wanted to get away from relying upon email because some people don't have access to email when they're at home, and secure VPN lines and those sort of things became a bit of a complication. Last, of course, is ShareFile. Many of you are familiar with ShareFile. That's an application we use to exchange documents back and forth. So if I'm exchanging documents with my team, it may go through ShareFile. Or those of you that have been contacted by us to do the audit by mail program. You know, our auditors are still auditing. We continue our functions, but you may get a request that we need you to scan your documents and upload them to the ShareFile in that a secure way rather than emailing, which causes confidentiality issues as well as size limitations. So those are some that I've looked at and we've really embraced. If we're contacted, or if we contact you for anything, we'll certainly give you guidance and instructions on how to utilize these tools when you're dealing with the office. But those are, from our perspective, are really the main things, is to be able to communicate with each other and then be open and available to communicating to you, ideally by email. So drop us emails. If you call our voicemail, we have everything go to email, and then we can reply back that way, because I've got 10,000 lawyers we have to be in connection with if people have any questions. So.
Okay, Trey, a couple of questions. Is your office comfortable with respect to confidentiality regarding the use of Zoom or Slack or GoToMeeting or ShareFile? Do you see any ethical issues there?
I don't see any ethical issues as long as you make sure that the people that are supposed to be on the call are on the call.
There you go.
Yep. So as long as the people are on the call, I think you'll be okay. And obviously, you don't want to open up to the wide public, and make sure that your clients know that this is a recorded call if you're recording it and are aware of things. But generally speaking, most of these things are no different than a conference call that people have with clients. It's just done over video. A paid system is much better than a free one, however. So if you do want to embrace something like this, give it a try for free, but I suggest you pay the $20 a month or whatever they charge, because you have a little more security when it's a paid system than when it's just a free system like Skype.
Okay, very good. I appreciate that. Let's see. Okay, Brooke, let's go to you. Are you on? Okay.
I'm here. Can you guys hear me?
Hello, Brooke.
Hi. I don't see that I have video.
Okay, now we can hear. I've got your cameras turned off to save some bandwidth. No.
Oh, great. Okay.
No, there you go. I can turn that. We should have that on. Hold on. Let me send you a webcam request. There you go. Okay. Go ahead, Brooke.
Okay, great. You got a little bit about me. I have been practicing law for 13 years in the Cedar Valley. 5 years ago. Yep. Can you hear me? Oh, now I can't see Trey, so I don't know if he's thumbs upping me.
Yes, go ahead.
All right.
I've got all the cameras.
I've been practicing law for 13 years in the Cedar Valley. 5 years ago, Okay, great. 5 years ago, I started my own firm. We have grown to a team of 7, 4 attorneys and 3 staff. We went totally remote as of last Wednesday. We have several people in our office who are at risk or have family members who are at risk. And I'm really glad that we did that as early as we did, because it's allowed us to iron out some hiccups that we encountered with those things. And I'm concerned about firms who haven't started making those preparations, but because we are a smaller firm, I think we've handled things a little bit differently. Everyone had a laptop. We don't use desktop computers. We already do have always allowed people to work from home if they've got, sick kids or they're sick or those kinds of things, to offer that flexibility. But in doing this, kind of the things that I've learned far and above, number one, is setting the tone. And I think that staff and clients all know that this is a big unknown right now. We don't know what's going to happen. And it's always changing. So reminding everyone you don't know, and that's okay, but that you're working for them, you're doing your best, and asking for their input. I think people have been very receptive to that. To say to a client, hey, how could I make this work better for you? And I've had clients who've had great ideas. My staff is absolutely incredible, and all of them have had great contributions of ways to make things, fine-tune them, and those kinds of things. I think everyone expects to both give and to get a little bit of flexibility right now as we encounter those things now, but also as we look to the coming weeks when we will probably be down staff members who are unable to work, either because they're caring for a sick loved one or they're sick themselves. So something that we thought was really important was to make sure that we were talking to our spouses and children and any other adults living in the house about confidentiality and what that looks like. And so it's been our practice for a long time to have vendors like contractors, IT guys, whatever, sign a non-disclosure agreement. And we said, okay, we're still going to be really careful about confidential information, but we recognize the fact that someone could overhear something or see something, even with all the precautions that we put into place. And so because of that, and out of a great deal of abundance, not out of distrust of our significant others, we did draft a document that you all are welcome to use if that would be helpful to you, that is a non-disclosure agreement for spouses. It also led to some good conversations with spouses who generically know, yeah, it's confidential kind of things, but just making sure that we're putting that into place and having that be serious as a condition of working remotely. I had a few attorneys who have asked me, oh gosh, did you have any spouses that were weird about it, awkward about it? Absolutely not. All of our spouses understood it, and I typed up also a summary that was a little more in plain English that said, here's why and those kinds of things, and we didn't have any issues, thankfully, with that. This is not a perfect form or a model form, because I'm trying to deal with clients and running a business and all those things just like all of you are. So I don't know that this is A+ work, but it at least will hopefully get the job done and provide some protection. So that's something that we talked about. We also talked about talking with children who are in the home about what that means, and that obviously is a lot different for a 4-year-old than it is for a 15-year-old, and so having some of those age-appropriate conversations of what that looked like became real important. Reach out. Be real transparent. We've got the same sign on our front door as we do in our email signature, as we do on Facebook, as we do on our website. It says we're fully operational but working remotely and not available for in-person meetings. We want that clarity to be there so that clients don't think that we're closed and that things don't grind to a halt. Get legal advice if you need it. If you don't do employment law, ask around. Say, hey, what are these options under these new programs that the government's having if things get real bad? I was very fortunate to hire an attorney who does a lot of employment law to say, hey, I need some help because I want to make sure that I'm looking at worst case scenarios and what that would look like. And that worked, and it made me feel better and made me feel more secure for my staff, and for the business and for myself. Ask the experts if technology is not your thing. Just make sure that you ask someone who does. I cannot recommend enough. Jeremy Stacker is a family friend of mine, but he opened Stack Tech Solutions in Hudson, and we transitioned over to him a few months ago. And he has been just an invaluable resource on thinking of things that we can't think about or don't have time to think about, having quick response times, and also not talking down to us as asking stupid questions. So he's been great to work with. So having those resources, whether it's getting legal advice for yourself or whether it's making sure that you are getting the right IT person, make that happen. So those are some of the things that I've learned. We use a little bit different products used. Okay, we've really relied heavily on just the Microsoft suite because we're already paying for it. Oh, I can't hear you.
Okay. Well, I showed your confidentiality agreement. So I will send that out to people that are attending. So they'll have a copy of it.
Yep.
Okay. Very good. Brooke, tell us what didn't work.
Great.
What could you have done better?
Good. And there's also on that. I think some things that we didn't think through were the banking aspect of things. Wow. Mobile deposit has limits, at least at our bank, that say specifically, it's more consumer based than business bank for deposits. And we were like, oh, we could just start doing that. So we've got emails to our financial institution to say, hey, are you guys making exceptions? What things are you doing? Just because we do want to limit our exposure and just uncertainty about shelter-in-place orders and what that could look like. So that's an unknown and something that we were like, oh, we got this down, and we're still working the kinks out on that. And my office manager's taking the lead on that. So I would say that's the biggest one. Also, mail, and I would love to hear ideas about what people are doing with mail. I live real close to the office, so I can pop over and head to the office at any point. But the issue is that the mail's official position is that they won't be delivering if businesses are closed. We have a mail slot, so it's secure mail. It can go in there easily, but just kind of seeing what that's going to look like. We're exploring mail forwarding options, but that's limited for businesses. So that's another uncertainty out there that we're looking at.
Okay, very good. I appreciate your insights, and I know that we're going to have some questions about this. I really like your confidentiality agreement. Thanks, Brooke. I appreciate it. Joe, I'm going to open your mic and get.
Thank you.
There we go. Okay, thanks, Brooke. Okay, Joe, what can you talk?
Nick?
Yes, Nick. Take it away.
Nick and Joe,
yeah.
Can I interrupt for a moment?
Yeah, Suzanne.
We've had a couple of questions that came from Trey's presentation, and a couple of people have asked. So Trey, I'm talking to you. Are Slack messages retained for government offices? Are they subject to FOIA requests?
They probably would. Well, they're retained. So you have the ability on the free account, I think the first 10,000 are retained. And then after that, obviously, if you have a paid account, it's unlimited retention. So they're certainly retained for those issues. So any governmental entity that would be using that would certainly be a concern they would have. But they are there in the actual sign-in information. It tells how many messages will be saved. And a lot of it depends, exporting and those things. I've not looked into how those would be exported. There's probably an export function to dump them down to Excel or some DBX file or something. But yeah, it's built in the system to be able to.
Okay, a second question is Google Drive an acceptable ethical way to share files with staff? Yes.
Google Drive? I think it would be. You want to take a look, obviously.
I'll take that.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Yeah, go
Okay,
ahead,
those are the only two I had.
and
So.
I'll follow up, because I got some comments on that for you. Okay. One thing with regard to the use of storing material, folks, not all attorney-client material is of the same classification. Some is obviously more sensitive than others. If you're going to store ultra-sensitive information in the cloud, encrypt it, password protect it, so that you've got a double layer of protection. You're going to have to determine your levels of classification. Top secret, secret, confidential, etc. But get used to classifying certain things. We have some material that's extremely confidential that we do not store in the cloud. So use some judgment with respect to that, and you can protect your client. Joe, I think we're up to you now. Go ahead, my friend.
Sounds good. Okay. Most of my practice is involving financial matters, and I deal with a lot of borrowers and lenders, and right now they're all scared. We're sitting there with a situation where foreclosures are stayed by the governor's proclamation, and they're wondering, what do I do next? So we're reaching out to all of our clients right now and specifically asking them to reach out and find out what they need. Can we help them in any way, not just legally, but otherwise, and helping them get their mindset that they can't put their head in the sand like an ostrich, because it's not going to get better. We need to get a plan and then get ready to execute on it. Now, when we talk about helping our clients get their mindset right, we have to do the same thing with our teams. Our teams are very important. So we have a morning and an afternoon call. 9 o'clock every morning, 4:30 in the afternoon. We set an agenda. The first thing on that agenda in the morning is the gratitude attitude. Everybody has to go around and say something they're grateful for, given the situation we're in. We can spend all of our time thinking about all the things we can't do, but let's think about the things we can do. We're all finding out that we can work remotely. We're finding out where the holes are, and we're patching them. Like Brooke told us, that when she figured out her internet was slower than she liked, she bought higher speed. So that works well. I've learned how to use Zoom well. I'd used it before, but I hadn't really started setting up Zoom calls. I've already had 3 Zoom calls this morning before this webinar. That's working very well. Clients love it. They're learning too. We've been able to operate remotely for years. We have 2 full-time attorneys and an counsel attorney or 2, plus paralegals and a client concierge and a part-time business manager. All of us are operating remotely. So this morning we had a Zoom meeting. We had 8 people on the Zoom meeting, and it went very well. And starting out with an agenda so you can get moving and keep moving. Otherwise, you can easily have death by meeting. So you need to have an agenda, lay out what you need to have, and at the end, some new business if we have anything to come on, then get off and get people doing their assignments. That helps a lot. We've just started using Clio Portal. Clio Portal allows us to set our documents. We can share documents with our clients. They can share documents with us. And it's very simple. When you are using Clio, you set up the contact to your client's name, address, and other things, email address in Clio. Once it's set up in Clio and Clio contacts, then you can set up a client portal. So you go to set up and send them a document, as I did last night. And I called my client who was going to be the guinea pig. I've had other people in my staff have been using it for quite a while, so I jumped on yesterday and looked at all of the videos. Now, Nick, I'm going to ask that you send out the short video that we have showing how Clio, the videos that are available from Clio, and then the other document that gives all the links to all the Clio videos. That'll save our time. We're not going to go through all of them. You can pick and choose if you're interested in Clio. It's working very well and it's very robust. And there are many things within Clio. We use it for our billing. You can also use it for keeping track of tasks. You can assign calendar things. You can also use another portion of Clio to keep track of your potential new clients. You know, we need to keep our clients, they need to know we're in the game and moving forward on this. The other thing we're doing right now is that we're using Microsoft Teams to communicate with each other. Teams keeps us from putting all those little comments in emails and emailing them and keeping our inbox more clear. We can upload documents to Teams. So this morning I uploaded the Paul Pate's in-person notarization waiver requirement guidance. And Nick, you might want to lay that out. That's available for people too. In order to do that, we're going to be using like DocuUsign, and there are 2 or 3 other commercial things you can use. And it talks about how you're going to notarize this document. You're going to need to be able to check at the ID. So you're going to need to be able to have good video that allows you to look at the ID. Look at the person. Does the person look like the picture that they're showing you on the ID? That's important. You're going to need to be able to witness a signature being made in the document. And then they can do the DocuSign, and then you can do the DocuSign. You're going to have to keep a copy of this, and it's all laid out in the guidelines of the Secretary of State. Yeah, we were going to have remote notarization available the 1st of July. It's been sped up dramatically. But as Secretary of State suggests, take the very limited things that they're talking about. They have eNotary, Docs by Synnex, Notarize, and Doc Verify are the ones that they are suggesting in paragraph 2 of that. So why don't we keep that limited list instead of going to a broader list? There may be others that would also fulfill it, but we know the Secretary of State already says these are fine. So why push the envelope too far? So we're having a good experience, but it's a growing experience, and it's somewhat painful once in a while.
Okay, very good, Joe. I appreciate that. You touched upon a concept here, folks, that we need to know about. Christy, could you unmute your mic and chat with me for a bit about what the Bar Association is doing dealing with document notarization? I know you got some stuff coming up. Can you brief us on that?
Yeah, so we're actually working on a webinar. Our probate section reached out to us just today, and they're actually working on setting up a webinar in the near future with ITech to go over that document signing. And I think they're going to try to have somebody from the Secretary of State also on that webinar. So it should look for information on that coming up very shortly.
Okay. Folks, what we're talking about.
Melissa's sending out something.
Okay. What we're talking
Melissa
about
Higgins
is, as you know, the legislature last year. The legislature last year passed a law that allows for digital notarization. That comes into effect July 1 of this year, a little bit late for the uses that we have. Christy, I've got you on the video. And I know the Bar Association is, hi Dwight, is attentive to this. They're concerned about, can we up that? Joe just indicated that with regard to the governor's emergency proclamation, the Secretary of State is allowing digital notarization. One of the concerns everybody has deals with wills, durable power of attorneys, healthcare power of attorneys, and that type of thing. How do you get it signed? And we don't want to assume what the law will be on something as critical as those documents. So we've reached out to the Bar Association to give us some guidance with regard to that. Christy, will these webinars that are coming up here in the next week or so, will they cover that?
Yes, and then also Dwight just handed me his phone. Melissa Higgins, our communication director, is sending out something today that's going to have the guidelines, a link for the guidelines for the Secretary of State too. Dwight, did you want to add anything?
Yeah. Come on over here, Dwight. Dwight, a question for you.
Just for
Number one, we're talking about the Secretary of State, but I'm concerned about notarizing wills, power of attorneys, and that type of thing.
Yeah, the Governor Reynolds signed a executive order the other day dealing with that, I believe. Let me double check that. I know that the Iowa State Bar Association has been in communication with her office requesting something similar, executive order that the New York State Bar, or excuse me, the Governor of New York had signed.
Okay, because we're going to need some guidance as to whether or not these documents are legally effective, because the issue is going to be raised 6 months from now in lawsuits. You know, was this properly notarized? Was it a valid power of attorney and that type of thing? So the bar office will be educating us and giving us some guidance?
You bet.
Great, I appreciate it. And more importantly, I appreciate the bar office being on top of these type of things. These are really issues that we need to deal with. Very good. Christy, back to you. You're the guru, the go-to person with respect to webinars and that type of issues. We've heard a lot about GoToWebinar versus Zoom and that type of thing, and Clio. What's the bar's position?
So we use GoToMeetings and GoToWebinar. Zoom, I've just started experimenting with. I think it's really important to look at the features between them and see what works best for you and what you want. I know GoToMeetings has ability to record and transcription. If you're wanting to share video through GoToMeeting, like say a video deposition or something, then GoToWebinar is probably your best bet because you can actually build that feature in the back end and the sound quality is better when you're sharing it with your client. If you ever want to learn more about the system, please feel free. You can give me a call and I can set up a 10 to 15 minute kind of walkthrough of what the system looks like on the back end and how you set up a meeting. I'm always more than welcome to do that for any member.
Okay, great. We appreciate it, Christy. A couple of things that both Christy and Trey brought up, and that is recording of these meetings. Let me give you some guidance on that from the Ethics Committee standpoint. It is okay to record a digital meeting or an online meeting with a client, provided you get the client's consent. It's simple, okay? At the very beginning of the meeting, okay, click on the record and say, Mr. Client, Miss Client, I'm recording this. Do I have your permission to record it? And if they say yes, then proceed. If they say no, then click off the recording. I've never had one, and we've been using this for whenever Trey brought it in 20 years ago or whatever it was, say no. In fact, they rather like it because I can then have the recording of what we talked about and send that to them. You know, it's amazing when you talk about complex legal matters, the client sits there and nods and they get it, et cetera. And as soon as the meeting is over, you know, and they get into their car and they drive away from your office, or they close the digital meeting and they go about their house wondering, I wonder what he meant by that. Well, if you record it, they can go back and look at it again. So that's very important. Number two, we've had situations where years later, and in one case in particular, it was 3 years later, where the client told me, he said, well, gee, had I known they made a settlement offer and with those terms, I would have taken it. I thought to myself, well, yeah, why wouldn't you? You know, and I went back and sure enough, there was a briefing on GoToMeeting with the recording, with their consent, where the whole settlement offer was presented to the client and it was discussed. And the client was there saying, no way am I going to do that. I mean, just went into and expressed extreme concern about the offer and the fact that it should be denied immediately. Well, we had all that on video with their knowledge and consent. So it's important if you can, that you record this with the client's consent. Joe mentioned, and I think Trey also mentioned, it's important to prepare for your digital meetings with your client, your online meetings with a client. A chat, just you and me and so forth, is one thing, but a chat accompanied by a PowerPoint presentation is much more organized, and it keeps the pace of the meeting going. This is one reason why I personally don't use Skype. I understand Skype for Business allows desktop sharing and that type of thing, but one of the advantages that I found with respect to GoToMeeting is that it forces me to prepare for that meeting, and we use PowerPoint, obviously. So now I've got the benefit of the screen showing what was on, like you're seeing here right now. You also have the benefit of the give and take of the audio that goes on with it. So it's a much better form of client communication. And we've been using remote meetings, GoToMeeting, for years, regardless of all the stress that we're in now. Clients seem to like it. So Zoom, GoToMeeting, either one of these works well. Okay.
And maybe one last thing, Nick. People should look on, like, GoToMeeting, their professional business one has listed the security features that they have in place, like the encryption and stuff. So it's always good to look at that too.
Okay. So now we've come to the time in our presentation where we need your view. We've got some polls to take, some questions, and here are the questions that we're going to be asking you. Suzanne, are you ready to launch the polls?
Okay.
All right, so let's start with the first one. And all you need to do is vote, and we'll see what your experience and comments are. Okay. Are we online here with poll, or do I have to do it? The first question we want to know is what you think about. Wow, look at that. Okay.
All right, Nick, they can't see the responses, so you're going to have to,
Okay.
when you say, wow,
Yeah.
you need a little feedback.
Need a little feedback, huh? So what do I need to show my screen here?
Well, we can just say it. 76 responded yes, 76% of you. 16% said no, and 8% said, no, I don't have the need.
Okay, that's pretty good. 76% saying yes, they do operate remotely. 16 no, and 8 are the lucky ones that don't have the need. Okay, we'll close that. Let me go on show my screen, and we'll try the second one here. Okay, just a second. Let's start the second poll, Suzanne.
All right.
The second one is, do you use video conferencing? And the options are, yes, I use GoToMeeting. Oh, how did I do that?
All right, I'll give them to you.
All right, good, good. Okay, so what do we have for that?
11% yes, GoToMeeting.
Oh, okay.
17% say they use Zoom. 6% use Skype. 6% say they use FaceTime. And 60% say no.
Okay. So those seems to be the products of choice. FaceTime, WhatsApp, and so forth over your cell phone are relatively new players and do have some one-on-one capabilities that we should be attentive to. But it looks like Zoom seems to be the product of choice, and GoToMeeting as a secondary one. All right, let's go to the third poll and see what folks are doing.
Okay, now I might suggest, Nick, that because I'm doing the poll, the response, the slide shows up in my screen. If
Oh,
you
okay.
want to post the results, you're going to have to do the poll.
Okay, well, let me try that then.
All right?
I think we can. Hold on. All right, close the poll. Oh, okay. I see how that works now. All right. Let's go to the next one. The next one deals with, do you use client portals? And we've talked about Clio. We haven't talked about Basecamp. We've been using Basecamp for a long time, and it's a product that, or a service that Trey originally found that deals, I think initially started out with the construction industry or something like that, which worked fairly well. It allows us to post matters to our clients, and they can post issues back. We have a communal system whereby, here we go, they can have a docket system, a calendar, upload documents, and so forth. Go on BasecampHQ. I think it runs us, I mean, $12 a month or something like that, and it is likewise pretty here. Okay, the next one deals with the use of client portals. Let me see if I can launch that. Okay. All right, do you use client portals? Wow, 5% use Clio. Looks like we're the only Basecamp users. 8% use other portal service. This is something, folks, you may want to think about, because remote conferencing like we're doing now actually brings the client into your office remotely. But if you have a client portal, they can log on at any time and see what it is that get their documents, upload their documents, download it, see the calendaring and that type of thing. And what it's like, frankly, it's just like having them actually in the office themselves. So we'll close the poll on this. There we go. And we'll share the results. Okay. Is that showing up, Suzanne?
Yes, it is.
Okay, so give some thought to client portals. Let me, one other kind of aside on that. Anytime a client logs into we call it a virtual office or remote office, I get it, you can tell when they log in. Folks, I am astonished of people logging into that thing, going into that office at 2, 3 o'clock in the morning. Now, maybe I just represent a bunch of us, people that can't sleep at night, insomniacs, but the fact is, we have a number of cases, but it's the only case that the client has. So that they can log on and get information about their case, instant updates and so forth at any time. That's, once again, just another way that they have we have of delivering the legal service to them. Give some thought to that. So Clio is a good one. I think the bar sponsors that. And if you have any questions about other ones, by all means, just let us know. We can help you with that. Okay, so let's go to the next one. The next one, of course, deals with off-premises storing. Okay, do you use off-premise storage? We're dealing with ShareFile. Let's launch that. There we go. ShareFile, Dropbox, other forms of cloud storage. Oh, it looks like a lot of folks do that. They're still voting in, folks. I know that ShareFile had an arrangement with the Bar Association for years regarding its use. We've used Dropbox. Scott Sobel over in Waterloo is the one that kind of got me onto Box. We've used that. He also recommended Doodle, and we'll get to that here shortly at the end of the thing. Thanks to you, Scott. Okay. Well, we got People are still voting here. It's kind of like the primaries, you know, the results come in. Okay, let's close the poll and we'll publish it. There you go. Suzanne, is that published?
Yes, it is.
Okay, 48%. ShareFile, Dropbox, OneDrive, Google Drive, and so forth. And 19% other forms of cloud storage, and 33% no need for. Bottom line is, I think all of these are good. And we're at a time now where people really expect some kind of access to, you know, we want to protect our materials. One word of caution, folks. One word of caution. These are all for-fee forms of storage, meaning you got to pay money to use this. They also require your credit card. If you don't, there we go. If you don't use that, keep that credit card paid, or you change your credit card number, you may not have access to your remote documents. So always have a real backup in your office, because about the time you can't get at your files, you're going to go crazy. Just like somebody locking you out of your file cabinet. So do not use any of these services as your sole source of storage. They're backups, or you will be locked out of your office, and they may have, read that end user agreement. Folks, they may have the right to destroy those files. So be really cautious with respect to what you store remotely, and do not assume that you will always have the right to get to them. I know there have been situations where that can cause trouble, and you don't want to deal with that. Okay, let's go to the next one here. Get out of that. Okay, do you use collaborative software like Slack and Teams that Joe talked about and so forth? We don't here, and so I'm really interested in seeing what people are doing and how they're doing it. We're thinking about it. I had this concept here earlier that when people needed to get a hold of a lawyer, they needed them 24/7. So I gave them my personal cell phone number and told them to call or text anytime they needed it. And then I complained because all I'm doing is getting calls and texts. You know, shame on me. I see that collaborative software may very well be a way of dealing with that. So we're going to be looking into Slack or Teams to see how we might further augment that instant collaboration. Okay, we'll wait here a couple more minutes. Looks like everyone has voted, so we'll close out the poll. Okay, Suzanne, is that published?
You should be. Click share.
There you go. That's why you need a professional presenter, folks. 2% yes, 12% use other forms. Okay, and then the group that I'm in, 87% no. Well, we will be looking at that shortly. Okay. All right, so let's go to document signing. DocuSign, which is what we use. Thanks to Scott. Folks, if you haven't used some form of this, you really ought to look into it. We use DocuSign all the time, getting stipulations signed by multiple parties to litigation. When I do remote mediations or telemediations, our settlement agreement is all sent out via DocuSign, and people can click and get it in instantly. It's a slick product. We've had no problem filing DocuSigned documents with respect to the court. Now, in that regard, when this went out, and I mentioned DocuSign, I've got some email inquiries with respect to whether or not documents signed by or DocuSign are proper pleadings to be filed in federal court. There's a split of authority on this. And the issue is whether the courts require what is referred to as a wet signature versus an electronic signature. Federal court, there's a bankruptcy case in federal court, not in our district, that seems to say, yes, it requires a wet signature. There are other federal decisions that say no, electronic signatures for pleadings is okay. What the difference here is, and let me close that and publish it. What the difference is DocuSign is satisfactory with respect to the Electronic Signature Act, which is a federal act regarding transactions. So a lot of you have had real estate transactions with DocuSign documents, any kind of commercial transaction. It's called e-signing. Overseas, you can do it via the Electronic Signature Act. What has not caught up with that is the federal filing system, where requiring wet signatures. And I don't know of any issues regarding the state in that regard. They will take digital signatures, but be aware there's a split of authority and some controversy about it. But we're going to continue to use DocuSign unless it's particularly in this period of shutdown, unless it's an exception. Suzanne, is that published?
Well, I'm seeing it.
Okay. Oh, well, that always works. Okay, we'll go to the last one here. Do you use scheduling software like Doodle? Now, let me explain what Doodle is. The logistics of getting people together is daunting. If you've got 5 people, you want them together for an online meeting, and you'll have 50 emails going around. I can make it on this day, but not that day, et cetera, et cetera. Go to scheduling software. You can eliminate the headaches of scheduling just simply by the use of one or more of these scheduling products. I got used to Doodle because the Bar Association uses it. People log in, they click what date and time they're available, a poll goes out, and the majority wins. And that seems to have eliminated all of the headaches associated with here we go. We'll manage this poll. Close the poll and share the result. Headaches associated with a lot of this. Okay, Suzanne, is that published?
Yes, it is.
Okay, not very many people are using scheduling software, folks. You really can't. Highly recommend it. Highly recommend it. So there we go.
Right.
Okay.
Okay, now I've got a bunch of other ethical questions. So
okay.
let's do those.
Let's do the questions now. I'll keep this screen up so the people can get the number. And I guess it is 1 o'clock. Let me go back to our staff, our co-presenters here, and open up their microphones. Suzanne, let's feed us the first question.
Okay. First question is, I got to turn my page here. Okay. Saving conversations. Who owns the communication? For example, if you're using Microsoft Teams, what's the ethics on that?
That's a good question. Joe, you use collaborative software. Who owns the conversations?
Well, I'm not using it outside of my office at this time. And I'm not sure who owns the conversation.
Okay.
We've only been using it internally as well. And something that we just made as an internal rule was we're using Teams to talk about things that would never need to be an exhibit in a trial, for example. And so anything that would be, substance-based about a client matter or something like that, we're just not putting it there because it's searchable, but it's in with other things of, hey, I got to put the baby down for a nap, so don't bother me with this right now, I'll be right back. Little things like that back and forth. So we've just said, don't put clients' names in there. don't talk about substance of files because we don't know the answer to that. And right now we're kind of in hurry up and figure this out mode. So we've just kind of punted that question, and that's how we're handling it.
Okay, that makes sense. Okay, next question, Suzanne.
Okay, United States Postal Service has informed delivery, okay, which is notification of what's in your mail. Is it available for businesses?
Yes.
So how's that work,
Okay.
Joe?
They scan every piece of mail that comes in. If you ask them to send it, they'll send you the scan of the envelopes or packages that are coming your way.
Really? So I don't have
Yes.
to come down to the office and get it?
Well, you still have to get it. They don't open it. How
Oh, I
lazy
know
are
that.
you?
I mean, at least I know I've got mail and what's here. So all of my junk mail gets, I'll get a
Oh,
notification.
no, it's
Junk
only
mail?
for us, I use it and you only see what they consider important mail. I don't get the ads.
Wow. So how do you sign up for this? I'll learn something new here.
Online. I saw it when I did my mail forwarding order from my office to the PO box. So we pick up all of our mail in the PO box every day. And that's then scanned and put in our NetDocs, which is another document system. And then the person that does that notifies the rest of us that you have something's been put in the NetDocs.
Excellent.
It's
Good.
really helpful if you're looking for a specific piece of mail to come in to know that you need it.
Yeah, like hopefully checks, right?
Okay. Yeah.
If it's checks,
That's
Nick,
nice.
then we get the question of how do we deposit them? And we use a remote deposit, but it's the scanned in, but somebody still gets that check and we have to scan it into the bank. It's better than driving to the bank because there's less level of, we don't even have to drive it up to the drive up, but it's still, we're right now strongly encouraging wire transfers. And I think I'm going to tell our clients that we'll eat the wire transfer fees to minimize the risk of infection. And it speeds us getting money.
You know, we'll run the risk of the infection. Just send the check. Just-
We've been
Okay,
using LawPay for that, and that's been amazing. And yesterday we made the decision to tell clients all new retainers and payments need to be made by credit card or debit card through LawPay or over the phone to us, unless they have a problem with that, and then we can work that out. So we're hoping that'll really cut down.
Brooke, how do you handle the trust account issue? Because, you know, some of those things got to go in your trust account.
Yep.
Do you
So
have LawPay directly to trust account?
Yep, so we're having LawPay put everything in trust so that we don't want to give like the client a choice, you know, because they won't know. And so everything's going into trust. So that is a little bit more work for our office manager, obviously, than to transfer those things. But at least that's something she can do from home and not go to the bank.
Okay.
And then, Brooke, are you also having your general account pick up the cost of the LawPay transaction so that that doesn't get taken out in the trust account? If I send $1,000, $1,000 shows up and you eat the cost, like I'm talking about eating the wire transfer fees, right?
Absolutely, and LawPay does that for you. So you can't, I understand this from my office manager, there isn't an option to do it the other way because ethically we're required to eat the fee, and because there's a trust account issue. And so LawPay has made it, our office manager handles that, and she is just like, wow, it is just seamless. And I'm, of course, overseeing that, and I'm like, it seems like it's seamless. So we've been very happy with LawPay.
I just wanted to bring that out for people that aren't familiar with LawPay and how important it is to not take that money, that cost out, and you can rest assured LawPay's done it right.
Yep.
Trey, can you comment a little bit on the payment and trust account issue?
Well, Brooke and Joe are exactly correct. I mean, LawPay does a great job. I can't officially endorse one entity over the other, but certainly look at that one. The big issue is, you know, with LawPay is, and any other entity is, you may have a mixed amount. So let's say that Brooke has done some work and maybe they're paying her $1,000. Just as she take a check and put it into her trust account first, and then transfer from the trust account to the general account, LawPay does the same thing. And so they basically make sure it all goes into the trust account, and then your books are to take out what you've already earned, commingled funds in that sense. But again, as Joe pointed out, you want to make sure that the funds that LawPay earns comes out of your general account, and they'll hook that all up. And I'm sure there's some other providers out there, but that's a great way, particularly in this day and age when people don't want to be writing checks or can't or don't want to come to your office. You want to look at some of those billing practices in that way, which will work. Now, if you're billing after the fact, LawPay and those things really aren't as important because those funds you've earned and they don't go into your trust account. So you can decide how it is you bill. And some people just bill after they've done all the work at the end. But for 99% of the practitioners out there, something like LawPay would go well to help with their practice.
So I prefer evergreen retainers to billing after the fact.
So well, yeah, we do the opposite, but that's just our custom trade. So what you're telling me is that if we use LawPay and your investigators come out and audit our trust account and they're saying, you're using LawPay, we're not going to get hauled off.
No, you're not going to get hauled off for using LawPay. Now, you could have other problems just like you would with any other trust account if you're not triple reconciling your accounts. LawPay is just a way to get the money into your trust account. You still then have to put it to the right client and do the things that way. But it's no different than...
I know there was some concern about, like, if you use credit cards, you give a credit card to somebody or they for the retainer, then does that credit card attach to your trust account? Is that credit card attached to your general account? And how do you deal with that? LawPay handles all that?
Yeah, LawPay handles that, and I would caution, and Joe will be the expert on this, but I would caution everybody, you don't want your client's credit card information. You don't want to be a person who's receiving the credit card and the secret numbers on the back. You don't want to be in that category because it opens up a whole bunch of regulatory issues as well as liability. You want to go through some third party like a LawPay that handles that side of stuff. Even we in our office, when you pay your CLE fees and your client security fees, US Bank handles it. I still have to fill out about an inch thick of paperwork just to show that we don't have the credit card accounts, but that's it. So yeah, you don't want the client's credit card information. You want the payment sent to you. And there's lots of ways they can do that. It really depends. Have you earned the fees yet? Joe has a great idea with the evergreen retainer, so he's always getting his retainer up front. Those go in the trust account. Someone may be billing after the fact, in which case those can go in the general account. It's just another mechanism to get money into your office.
Excellent. That was a good question. Thank you, who's the questioner. Suzanne, what else? Give us another one.
How does a legal group get buy-in from IT support that deadlines and document access is vital to maintaining an ethical practice?
Run that by again, so I'm sure I understand it.
Okay. How does a legal group get buy-in from IT support that deadlines and document access is vital to maintaining an ethical practice?
Okay.
I think getting the right IT person on board. We use a similar non-disclosure to the spousal one, similar non-disclosure agreement for our IT folks to sign. Staff Tech has been able to remote into our computers seamlessly with problems, same day response. When we've had a problem that doesn't need a same day response, like we'll write in the message like, hey, low priority, but could you look at this kind of thing. So, I mean, I think with getting having the right local provider will help with that. And then that translates also to being able to ask the local provider, hey, I'm thinking about using whatever, Doodle, and do you think that that's secure enough for me to use? And if you've educated them about their duty of confidentiality and your requirements of confidentiality, they'll be in a better position to kind of help guide you about what external programs and things to use. That would be my response to that.
Joe, what do you?
Okay.
We also use a confidentiality agreement with our IT people, which is excellent, which reminds me of one other thing. We had to call our IT people yesterday because one of our remote workers had a glass of water pour down on her laptop, and we're hoping she can get back up and operational soon.
Oh.
So that's something to remind all of your staff. Keep fluids away from your computers.
Let me share something with you. A few years ago, we had a case where an IT guy went off the rails. Was going to hold a law firm hostage regarding access to their files and things of that nature. And of course, that left a bad taste in my mouth with respect to the IT folks. But be cautious, folks. These people have access to everything you have. And like Brooke indicated, you know, they got to be bound by confidentiality agreements and that type of thing and not hold your stuff hostage. So choose them with care because you're giving them the crown jewels. Okay, Suzanne, another one.
Our Google Forms sent out to prospective clients for intake secure enough for confidentiality.
Anybody use Google Forms?
I do not.
I do not.
Either do I. The forms that we sign, we use DocuUsign for all the forms. For example, our engagement, almost all of our engagement agreements are signed via DocuSign. And I've never had any concern about confidentiality on that. But I don't have any experience with Google Forms. Suzanne, in the teaching world, did you guys use Google Forms or Google Docs?
Yes, but nothing that, the only thing in teaching would be you have student health forms and various
education plans.
Yeah, that you can't, that are supposed to be confidential, and we never used Google Forms for that. It was always kept in house, but
Okay.
in a small school, that's easy to do. So,
Okay, give us another question. This is fun.
Okay.
I enjoy this. You're a lot of learning just from the questions, Brooke.
well, could Brooke finish the comment she started about the products she uses? She started to mention Office Suite. I assume they're talking about team, whatever the team thing is for.
Absolutely.
Office
So some of the ones that we have used is Teams, and so that's included with Microsoft. And so if you're not super tech savvy, you're just going to go to your start bar and type in Teams, and it'll pop up, and then you're going to invite other people on, you know, your team to join in. So you can have a conversation. Like I can have just like one channel that's all attorneys, one channel that is all of us, the legal assistants can have their own channel. You know, we can do multiple different conversations about that. So that's been helpful. I also, for encrypting things, I just use Outlook's encrypting, and it makes it super easy. You're just gonna go over to your info tab on any document and click encrypt. It's one button, it makes it super easy. You can test it with your spouse, your coworker, your friend to see how it'll interface with clients. And we only do that for, you know, real sensitive information that we're sending, but that makes that super easy. So we don't have an outside service for that. We use SharePoint and OneDrive for all of our documents, and we house most everything on the cloud. We still have a few physical files, but most of those are duplicated on the cloud as well. And then my last one is something that we discovered just here this past week, and it is a free application. It is not a Microsoft product, but it's endorsed by Microsoft, and it is called Zoodoo. X as an X-ray, ODO. X as an X-ray, ODO. And this is going to be a lifesaver for all of us, I think, because what that does is it means you don't have to buy the editor version of Adobe Acrobat, but it allows you to edit PDFs and also merge PDFs. So that means you're not having to print and scan as much. So something that has been just incredibly helpful is, for example, my legal assistant prepares a petition and she's gotten some attachments from a client. I review the petition, I review the attachments. I'm like, yep, looks good. We put my signature, my swirly S, right, on there. And then my legal assistant can attach using that program to combine those PDFs into one document to upload for the clerk. So we are just very relieved because that's new software to us as of just this week. I keep saying this week as though it's Friday, but it's only Tuesday. But man, guys, time is weird in this pre-apocalyptic world. So that has been a very useful program. There's a lot of PDF editors out there, but most of them charge per user. And so to find one that's high quality, that is safe according to RIT folks, and it's free, we were pretty excited about that. The other thing that we have used, and this is the last one, is Nextiva. So we have our voice over IP phones through Nextiva, Nextiva, and they have a phone app. And the phone app means that we can basically use your cell phone like a desk phone. And so that has been absolutely awesome. I don't know if you'll be able to like see it on my screen, but so it's just its own separate app. And then it says there, oh, call Melinda Arnold, and I can call any of our staff. They can call me. And best of all, if I'm calling a client, it's ringing as though it's the office number. Okay, if they're calling me, if incoming, it treats it exactly the same. You can change who the phone is ringing to. So right now, the only people that answer the phone are our awesome legal assistant team. So it just rings directly to the three of them. If one of them goes to lunch or needs to deal with something else, they can turn it off. If we end up in a crisis situation where we have a lot of sick people or something like that, then we can modify that really easily so that it rings to everybody or, whatever those needs are. We can transfer calls between us. And so if you don't have it, I highly recommend that. That has really made this process easy and a lot easier than having to bring home a physical phone and try to work out those logistics.
Yeah, you're right on the name of that software again. We went to phone.com, an online phone service, and dropped and got away from CenturyLink about a year or so ago. So much more flexibility, including conference calling and that type of thing. Right now, I can port my calls from the office anywhere, and it's a fraction of the cost of what CenturyLink was. So, your smaller firms like ours, look into these digital phone systems. The flexibility and the use for clients is tremendous. I know, Joe, you guys went to one up there.
Right. Brooke, what was the name of that software you talked of?
The Adobe or the PDF one is Zodo, I think is how you say it. And that's the letter X as in X-ray, O as in octopus, D as in dog, O as in octopus.
And how about the phone one?
The phone is Nextiva, Nextiva.
With respect to Zodo, does that allow you to bookmark the exhibits? When I use my Adobe, I usually bookmark the exhibits for the convenience of the court and everyone else.
I don't know that. My assistant didn't mention doing that, and yesterday she was filing a petition that just had like 1 or 2 exhibits. So I can ask her that and email you, Joe.
I'd appreciate that, because many times I will file them and we might have a whole boatload of exhibits, and it makes it an awful lot nicer for everybody if you can get straight to an exhibit.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
Very good. Let's take another question.
Okay. Well, I might make a comment at this point. You've all said various packages, and I'm familiar with most of them, but some people would not. And so I would suggest that each of you write down on a note what the true name is, so we don't have to worry about spelling of the thing is, and maybe one line of how you use it, just so we know what type it's going to go for. And then we compile them and put them out there for people to look up on the internet and see what we're using, because we mentioned something and I think, wow, that'd be, someone could really use that. Or if I'm sitting out there as a lawyer going, I might want to look into that, but the names go past us and the spellings are kind of weird at times. So if you could compile a list and post it with this session recording and your other PDF that you have out there, which I hadn't looked at, I think people would find this helpful. Okay, next.
Yeah, because what happens when this webinar closes, the GoToWebinar sends out a notice to everybody, and I can include all of those in that notice, so you'll have that information, folks.
Okay, excellent.
Suzanne, how about,
Our stuff, oh, sorry. Go ahead, Nick, sorry.
one last thing, Trey, I noticed this webinar is going to go on longer than the hour that it was credited for, and some really good stuff is coming on the second half. Any chance we can bump the accreditation up to an hour and a half on the ethics side?
It's already been done. I went in and just did it a few minutes ago. I thought about cutting out the first 15 minutes of fluff, you know, the pictures and that sort of stuff, but I went ahead and left them in for everybody.
You don't like that baby picture, huh?
Right, so you got an hour and a half now if you go on, so.
All
And
right.
the same activity ID number is the same. Everything's the same.
Oh, here.
Okay, next question.
Yeah.
What about witness affidavits to support motions with the court? Is there anything being done to handle that electronically?
Well, we had that come up, and actually we had it come up over in federal court, and I used DocuSign to have it signed and with an affirmation, and it worked. I think the notarization, the digital notarization issues that we talked about during the webinar will solve those questions. Okay.
Something you might be interested in knowing is that the bankruptcy court in Chicago has approved use of DocuSign for bankruptcy petitions given the emergency situation. The Rules Committee is now looking at that, and they're going to watch and see how well it works, and that may be the catalyst for a change in the federal court rules.
Good, good. I think, yeah, they're behind the time. All right, we got another one, Suzanne?
Okay, this was one. It says, does GoToWebinar satisfy the remote notary vendor requirements? And I answered that with yes, because I know what GoToWebinar features are there, but you better qualify since I'm not a lawyer. Is that true? Would it satisfy?
Yeah, I believe it does. I looked at those requirements the other night, and assuming everything falls in place as Christy was telling us and Joe's telling us, I believe it would. Very much so.
Okay. There's been a lot of this notary or notarization. There's been several questions that said, where can we get the information exactly on this? And I haven't heard anything about this. Could you post a link to the information? So how do you handle that?
Joe?
I believe the Bar Association already posted it, but if not, I've already sent it to you, Nick, from the Secretary of State and also Governor's proclamation. So you might want to post both of them as part of this webinar.
Okay.
Yeah,
And
that email's already
Christy,
gone out.
okay, Christy, has it gone out?
Yes, the email has gone out from Melissa.
I saw it already.
Okay, there you go, folks. You already got it. All right.
Nick,
Yes.
this, I was looking at the Secretary of State's directive and so forth, and I've already received a question from probate attorney Janice Kirchhoff from Cedar Rapids, and she asked whether or not the Bar Association would be exploring the possibility of looking at the three specific programs that were mentioned specifically in the Secretary of State's directive. I think the Secretary of State mentioned three programs, they being e-notary docs, spelled DOX, by SignX. There's a second program called Notarize, and a third program called Doc Verify. The Bar Association hasn't done its due diligence, but it did appear from the Secretary of State's directive that there are other programs out there that will qualify, but when doing your own due diligence, make sure that the other programs comply with the requirements set forth in the Secretary of State's directive.
Good point, Dwight. Good point. Is that in the bar, the notice that went out?
It is in the Secretary of State's directive. And that,
Paragraph 2.
and that's what Joe mentioned just momentarily ago.
Excellent. Folks, look at those things and follow that guidance. That'll make your life a lot easier.
And you'll have to sign up for remote notary, and there's a sign up, log into the Secretary of State's website in order to do a remote notary. It's an easy registration, but it does need to be done or you can't remote notary.
Okay. I assume, Christy, that all of this is going to be covered in an upcoming webinar here in the next week or so?
Yes, we're working on getting that webinar up and running.
Yeah, the Iowa State Bar Association is planning on co-sponsoring a webinar with the Iowa Association of Trust and Estate Counsel, and they have already been working on the agenda for such a webinar on the remote notarization and signing documents remotely.
Excellent. Excellent. Our Bar Association in action. We appreciate it. Okay, we got time for one last question, Suzanne. What do you got?
Whoa, I've got more than that. Maybe we should tell them that all these questions are recorded. So I'm assuming if I mark the ones we haven't covered, you'll respond to them, Nick?
I will do. When it goes out, I'll look at it as soon as we get the report.
So those of you that still have a question out there, I'll make sure he answers you, okay? Let's see.
He will too.
Well, this one is a clarification. There's a clarification of the notary. It said, he went on to say, I should have asked you this. Do you have instructions for your clients to make sure that they are in a confidential place and not in a room with several people, therefore causing problems with lawyer-client confidentiality?
We do. We've made that a policy of securing files and those kinds of things. Different people, because of different, setups at their home, either have a home office or a locking file cabinet, or other manners to have that done, just depending on kind of household situations. If this was something that's going to go on for a long time or something that was pre-planned, I think that we would probably create a more formal policy on that. But as it is, we're kind of like, okay, what's the best way that you can do that? And we have those non-disclosures for spouses. In our particular office, everyone is married and doesn't have any other adults living in the home with them. But if they had a non-spouse significant other, or if they had, their mother living with them, or something along those lines, I think we'd be expanding that. So that's been our procedure, to just make sure that we're covered and that documents are protected. And that's just one more reason to try to get as much as you can online, so that we don't have physical files in the house.
But I think the question was going more to the point of, if you're witnessing somebody signing something and you want attorney-client privilege, are they in a room that they're by themselves and not where others can hear it? Are you addressing that?
I'm sorry, we have not run into that as an issue yet, but how about Joe, Nick, what are you guys doing on that front?
Right, Joe.
So far, I haven't had that be an issue, but I understand how it could be. This morning when I had my Zoom call with 2 other people, both of whom are clients, I didn't observe anybody else, but I didn't specifically ask them. But it's a good question, and if we're doing these Zoom meetings, we need to ask that question and inform them of the consequence of not keeping it confidential by having somebody who's not a client listen in.
That's a very good point. Frankly, in all these meetings I've been doing, I've never thought of that. So thank you, whoever posted that question. One last thing from the bar office. Harry Shipley, I've unmuted your mic. You've got some comments with respect to DocuSign? Oop, I think I caught him off.
Harry's not in the office right now. He's actually at home under quarantine. He just got back.
I saw he logged on with a question, and Harry wanted to remind us that the Bar Association apparently has some type of a deal going with DocuSign. I'll read it out here. He says, Doodle. He says, Nick, Doodle is no longer a free service, but the ISBA has secured a significant number of accounts for bar members at a deep discount of $25 annually. If they're interested, they can contact Hank Hansen, H. Hansen, S-O-N, at iowabar.org, or me or Christy, and we'll get that information to it. So you can save some money on Doodle thanks to your membership in the Bar Association. Well, the time has come when we got to close it, folks. We could go on for hours because you know, this is a very timely webinar here, and I'm sure that there'll be more on this. I want to thank all of you for attending, and most importantly, I want to thank Brooke and Joe and Trey and Christy and Suzanne for your participation here.